We're very honored today to be joined by His Excellency Jakaya Kikwete, former President of Tanzania, the Right Honorable Mokgweetsi Majoro, Prime Minister of Lesotho, the Honorable Lila Dukan Lakuman, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education of Mauritius, and Dr. Mohamed Pate, Global Health Director at the World Bank and former Nigerian Health Minister. It's very hard, I think, for political leaders to have a forward vision at this point in their tenure. If you were in office right now, what would your forward vision look like?
Yeah. So let me just reflect for a moment. One of the things that struck me in my current role when COVID struck in early this year, and we started to put together a response for countries. We put together a response that has now reached 108 countries. And what struck me was that things like supply chain for basic things, we did not have a global mechanism. And in many countries, it was even difficult to sort of understand where stuff lied and how to mobilize it and to deploy it where it should be found. Right. Things like that, I think are some of the learnings that we have heard. And I think in retrospect, if I were in government, I mean, given the experience, certainly you'll use the opportunity that, sorry for the use of the word opportunity, in this crisis to reimagine how our systems will be configured and to innovate differently, to think through in a very practical way. Who are we serving? How are they going to be served? How do we need to change our mode of delivery? And how do we adapt our financing? How do we bring in other actors together? How do we engage with the citizens in a way that is constructive, would get their voices, maintain their trust, but also be able to respond to the genuine expectations that they have and where we fall short, that we at least will be understood. So I would think about it in those terms and use this as really a launchpad for creating a different future. Because the risk is if we try to rebuild the past that we had, that is gone and it didn't work very well. Even in the higher income countries, we're seeing them struggling. And so for the lower income countries, the poorest countries, to really use this and as well as leapfrog. COVID has brought in the digital technology, maybe in health and education in a profoundly different way. And we are not prepared. Many countries were unprepared. But coming out of it, I think even the poorest countries can have silver linings in how they seize those moments and innovate their way to have very efficient ways to deliver quality services to their populations at scale, and how they govern and how they engage with their citizens.
What have you learned as a leader, and what would you share for others to reflect on?
Well, I'm 2 months in office, but I was finance minister before, and I've been a minister previously. So I've always had a good sense of what we needed to do. And so coming in as premier was an opportunity, a rare opportunity for anyone who had wishes to have. And so the lesson was, well, I come in knowing exactly what I'm going to do, yeah, but now getting ministers who are political leaders in their own right, and my colleagues, getting them to buy my vision, when in fact I come midstream and I'm not coming from an election, and this is a constituency parliamentary system, not a presidential system. They don't know what I'm going to do in advance. Now, getting them to buy that vision requires a bit of work, and so you go one by one, each minister, and ministers are not the same. Some are more powerful and more dangerous. If they don't buy the vision, they can be very disruptive. But if they buy vision, they can also be very. So you have to be able to listen, even if you disagree, and gradually try to guide the process to a unitary vision which they buy into. So it is work that requires talking to ministers individually and collectively, and quite frankly, sometimes you need to be stronger, wield a little bit of a command and control stick, but you combine all those instruments together. It's still, frankly, early stage. I'm refining my approaches and I'm learning as I go, but I don't want to lose sight of what we need to do. Our poor people, hungry people, are at the center of our discussions daily, and that always rejuvenates and reorganizes our thoughts.
What would you advise political leaders now in this current circumstance and in the months going ahead to do to mitigate the political risk?
Well, first, of course, my advice to politicians is that they will always be blamed when there is a problem. They will always be praised when there is success. So that's it. If things are fine, they say, oh, President Kikwete is just great. If there is a problem, even if you don't know it, you've not been responsible, say, what kind of government is this one? People are suffering. Well, at the same time, it is the first time you also see it on television that there has been a problem somewhere and you start to respond. First, of course, this. But again, with this disease, there are some of the measures that have got to be taken to keep people safe have not been very pleasant, but they've been necessary to take. And because they've been necessary to take, definitely people are not happy with it. When you tell people maintain social distance, face mask, wash your hands all the time, don't shake hands. You know, it's people are used to shaking hands, and when you tell them don't shake hands, yes, don't congregate. People have celebrations. We had Easter here, and people did not go out and celebrate. We had the Eid after this fasting of Ramadan recently. People have been told, don't congregate. So you get in these kinds of situations where people blame them. Of course, what is important is you either take a populist approach and let your people suffer, or you do the right thing. Of course, what is important for governments to do to minimize the political risks is to develop strong communication. You have to have strong communication. Communicate to your people. Talk to your people. Tell them why you are doing this. What are the benefits? What are its consequences? Many will definitely understand, but there will be those who, whatever you do, they will not understand. But as long as you have reached out to the majority of the people, you have explained your case, you have gained your case, you have explained to them why that those actions have got to be taken. I'm sure at the end of the day, the end will justify the means, and people will understand. But if you don't communicate, you don't explain why certain measures have got to be taken, the consequences could be fatal.